Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 4 of the anime series DanMachi, and this was another enjoyable episode for me, picking up largely where we left off and featuring the debut of this brand new thief sort of supporter character, very much reminiscent to my mind. I got to call back to Final Fantasy VII once again, the character of Yuffie Kisaragi, who immediately, as soon as you run into her, she tries to steal all your materia and you're left chasing after her, and that's kind of what's going on in this episode. Even though the character Liliruca, she doesn't look or really act anything like Yuffie does in Final Fantasy VII, she's still kind of similar in that she is a thief. And, you're kind of calling back in your mind the first time we saw her, the guy she was traveling with was really, sort of dismissive and derogatorily handling her and belittling her and everything like that. And so you can kind of see what the impetus is, but it's also something to do with Souma Familia, her particular Familia, as we find out in this episode. And she's kind of perplexed by Bell, but of course I'm getting ahead of myself. First we see that Bell has gone to his sort of, I guess you could say, dungeon social worker in a way, in a sense, Aina, and I was really intrigued to find out that she was more than sort of a bank teller, that he was just going to her to exchange the crystals he gets for destroying monsters and getting valise or the money, whatever it is, in exchange for it. She's actually sort of trying to guide him, and basically it makes him sort of uncomfortable because he kind of reacts like it's a date or something. And again, this show's sort of skirting the line of harem with, you have the goddess Hestia, and then you have Seer, and then you have, this new character Liliruca, and then, of course, Aina. All these women are kind of not necessarily vying for his affection, but at least his attentions, And she gets all dressed up to help him go shopping for a new set of armor, because basically he sort of apprehensively convinces her that his power stats, level E, a very high level, should allow for him to go in a deeper level of the dungeons, level 7. And she's not very, reciprocative of this at first. She has to be convinced because she worries about him. And I don't know if that's because she actually has interest in him romantically, or it's just, because he's an adventurer and he's so young and she feels compassion towards him and worries for him. But in any event, she gets dressed up and they go shopping, effectively going to Hephaestus's shops. And I like that we picked up on this, because when we saw that Hestia had to sort of be made to wear, this particular sort of outfit by Hephaestus for making the deal of forging the blade that Bell now carries, gifted by Hestia, but, basically forged by Hephaestus. It was kind of like, well, what is she going to be doing with Hestia that involves having to dress up almost in a pseudo-maid or, like shop girl outfit kind of situation. And in this episode, we see that little sort of forge, that little room that we saw in the previous episode of Hephaestus's. This is just sort of the back room area. This entire shop that she owns is multi-levels. It's like a giant, brilliant shopping center of weapons and such. The first floor of which, it's like the walls are gold and all the shiny, golds and silvers of the weapons and the shielding and everything, the armor. It's just so high priced and so crazy. And we actually have Bell and Aina running into Hestia. She's doing her, trying to sell stuff routine. And of course she's jealous because what is Bell doing here with Aina and everything like that. She's like, you better not be trying to schmooze him, So that was hilarious in and of itself. Of course, they go to a higher floor where they're more, affordable and cheap armor and everything like that. And Bell decides to go looking around in the back of the area. He finds armor here he's very much happy with, but it's going to take all of the money he has thus far, accrued in his battles and such. And after the fact, he's actually gifted another sort of arm gauntlet piece that's like this emerald color by Aina for just, she basically expresses the idea that she is worried for him. She wants to, do whatever she can to assure that he won't be one of these adventurers. She sort of references like this has happened to her before. An adventurer has gone adventuring and never returned. And that kind of loosely reminded me, calling back on, the grandfather of Bell who went missing. I don't know if he was an adventurer necessarily, but this kind of seemed to prompt Belle's wanting to go out adventuring, and or could it be that, you know, Aina has her own loss, like maybe she had a boyfriend or a husband, something like that, you know. But in any case, it's born out of compassion, her wanting to do her job, the professionalism of wanting to do her job for Belle, but also the compassion of not wanting to see him, you know, taken before his time or go missing or any harm befalling him. And he sort of reluctantly accepts the gift. And this is where we see he is paired up, you know, it's basically been put into his mind by Aina, as I say, to look for a supporter. And he just happens across this little girl who he saved earlier in the episode. She was being chased after, and we find out she is like a Cianthrope or whatever, you know, kind of a cat girl situation, as per the ears on the head, which are under her little hoodie and everything. And it's interesting because she has these little smirks that they emphasize. You know, there's something more going on. I wasn't exactly sure where they were going with it, whether she was going to be related to some sort of other familia, like, the, you know, Freya, the seeming antagonist of this series, or not, or if she was in for her own accord, kind of. And it turned out to be she was in for her own accord. She's very much, again, like I say, the Yuffie Kisaragi character from Final Fantasy VII, in that the first opportunity, you know, she makes off with Belle's Hestia blade and tries to pawn it and get rid of it. And this thing is so empowered that only he can wield it, and it's actually worth anything when he does so. It's sort of attached to him. Similarly, I guess it's attached to Hestia herself. And this perplexes, of course, Liliruca, because after she tries to pawn it off, she's told it's dull, it's worthless. She'd get 30, you know, Valise or whatever. So she decides to just sort of carry it on her way, at this point having split off with Belle. And he's only just realized he's missing the blade, so he's going, you know, completely bat guano crazy over it. And you basically have what I thought was interesting, Liliruca running into Seer, as well as this character Ryu, who is like Seer's friend and co-worker. She's very sort of plain stated, but, you know, we saw her earlier in the episode when Belle effectively saved Liliruca from the thuggy guy who was trying to, you know, get at her. And this was the first time we see Ryu, like, she's basically very ominous and threatening, like, you don't want to piss me off. You know, if I get angry, you're going to regret it. And this is what gets this guy to back off of Belle and back off of Liliruca when they first ran into each other. And then again, you basically see that, you know, Ryu has realized, as just sort of in passing Liliruca in this, you know, back alley, Liliruca is carrying Belle's blade. She had made off with it. And somehow, you know, Ryu picked up on that immediately. And she's like, no, you're going to give me that blade, you know, because Liliruca's like, no, it's mine. And we see Liliruca take off running, and of course, you basically have Ryu and Seer following along. Ryu is carrying the blade, and they just happen, you know, coincidences as they may be plenty in this episode, they run into Belle. And so he's grateful that they've given him the blade back. They just sort of found it, you know, they don't exactly say they found it on Liliruca and everything like that. And in fact, Seer kind of, you know, parts after a little bit of an uncomfortable scene where, you know, Belle's getting up in Ryu's face and like thanking her, and she's kind of like, no, you should be doing that to Seer. She's the one who likes you. You know, there's this moment where Seer bends over and whispers into Liliruca's ear, you know, don't be a brat kind of situation. You got off easy this time, kid. You know, that kind of situation. And then Belle, very interestingly, is like, well, you know what? I had such success and such help with you supporting me, you know, yesterday or earlier this morning, whatever it was. Let's work together more. And this is where it completely blows my mind as well as Liliruca's mind, because Belle, when they make, you know, I think it's like 20,000 Valise or whatever after they've, you know, gone back into the dungeon, he literally gives her half of the awards they've gotten, you know, the money they've accrued. And she's like, wait, you don't want to take the majority for yourself? You're not going to be selfish like everyone else I've run into? And so I found that hilarious and awesome that she's kind of like, you know, she bows her head. She's like, you're weird. you know, because Belle's just being sort of selfless and sharing the wealth. It's kind of my own personality trait as well. I want to, you know, help others around me if they've helped me and everything, and thank them for that, even if they haven't. You know, I want to be able to help people around me, and that's kind of Belle's character. You know, he was helped by this girl. He doesn't realize she was the one who stole his knife, and now he's even carrying it sort of tucked into the gauntlet that was given to him by Aina. So we, of course, leave off with them entering a dungeon, and this is just after a brief scene where we see Eyes is actually in there with a partner in a dungeon about to, you know, fight this gigantic monster. I'm wondering if that's, you know, sort of where Belle and Liliruca are heading. They're going to run into that scenario and maybe help them defeat this creature or something. I'm not exactly sure, but it's definitely ominous because we do see Freya observes them entering the dungeons, and she's like, you know, I just wanted to kind of watch and see what was going to happen, but I need to play with him, you know. Very ominous and very sort of like, what's going to happen next, you know. So grand episode this was. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 4 of DanMachi, if you've seen it, if you enjoyed it as much as I did, if you are enjoying the series as much as I am, and you know, speculations for the future. What do you think will be coming next, especially with these hints that you know, Eyes is going up against this creature and Freya wants to toy around, as she says, with Belle, and we know that Belle and of course Liliruca are heading into the dungeon, and there's that last final moment where the goddess Hestia herself hears, you know, Belle's laughter or whatever in the crowded street. She's just coming home from a full day of working at Hephaestus' shop, and she's completely you know, downtrodden until she hears Belle's voice, but then she turns around and there he is hand in hand with Liliruca, and she's jealous. So just a really charming series, a lot of fun characters, and can't wait to see where we go from here. Love to hear from you, as I say, in the comments below, as long as there's no spoilery materials. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.